She left me alone on our wedding night. I still remember the way the silence wrapped around me, heavier than the suit I was wearing, heavier than the ring on my finger. And at midnight, I heard something that made my skin crawl, something that told me I wasn't really alone after all. Before I begin this story, let me ask you to subscribe to Voice of Brother Jack. Your support means more than you know. It helps me share more stories that may sound like fiction, but come from the deepest corners of life. My name is Jack. I'm 28 years old, and I never thought my life would turn out this way. The night I'm about to tell you about was supposed to be the happiest of my life, my wedding night. For months, maybe years, I had imagined what it would feel like, the music, the smiles, the people clapping and dancing, the laughter of friends who came from far away, and most of all, the moment I would finally be alone with the woman I loved, the woman I promised to share every moment of my future with. Her name was Emily. From the moment I met her, she had a way of making me believe she was the missing piece of my life. She wasn't perfect, but maybe that's why she felt so real. She laughed too loudly at times. She was a little too secretive about her phone, but I told myself all couples have quirks. I ignored the little cracks because I was too busy painting the picture that I wanted to see. The wedding itself was everything I thought it would be. My best man, Daniel, gave a speech that almost made me cry. My parents hugged me so tightly I thought my ribs would break. Emily's parents looked proud. Her friends looked happy for her. Or maybe they were just good actors. I didn't know then. I didn't see the things I should have seen. When the last guest left and the music finally stopped echoing through the hall, Emily and I drove back to the house I had been preparing for us. I decorated it myself. Candles, soft lights, a bottle of wine waiting by the window. I wanted our first night to feel like a dream. But the strange thing was, Emily was quiet. Too quiet. At first I thought maybe she was tired. Weddings can do that thing, drain the life out of you. But the way she kept checking her phone, the way her eyes shifted every time it lit up, something about it pulled at me. Still, I told myself not to overthink. Don't overthink, Jack, I whispered to myself. We entered the house, and she walked straight past me, straight past the living room, and said she needed to change out of her dress. She didn't smile. She didn't even touch me. I waited on the couch, staring at the shadows dancing on the wall. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 40. When I finally knocked on the bedroom door, I found it empty. Her dress was lying on the bed, the window slightly open, the curtains fluttering in the night breeze. My chest tightened. Emily? I called out in the silence. No answer. I searched the house, the kitchen, the backyard, even the basement. Nothing. My phone buzzed, and I grabbed it, hoping it was her, but it wasn't. It was Daniel, my best man. The message was short. Are you okay? You should probably check outside. Confused, I rushed out into the night. The street was quiet, the only sound, the distant hum of a car engine. That's when I heard it. Soft at first, and then clearer. Laughter. A woman's laughter. Emily's laughter. I froze. The sound came from the alley just a few houses away, my stomach twisting, my mind refusing to believe what my ears already knew. I walked slowly, each step heavier than the last, until I reached the corner. There she was, Emily, my wife, still in the same makeup from our wedding night, and standing beside her, too close, far too close, was Daniel. His hand brushed against hers as if they'd done it 100 times before. My knees almost gave out beneath me. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might explode. I wanted to scream, to ask for an explanation, but all I could do was stand there in the shadows watching my entire life collapse in front of me.
And they laughed again, softer this time, and Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. My vision blurred. It was supposed to be our wedding night, and yet here she was, with the man I trusted more than anyone. I don't remember how long I stood there, seconds, a minute, an eternity. When I finally backed away, the night felt colder, darker. My world had ended before it even began. And that was only the beginning of the nightmare. And that was only the beginning of the nightmare. I went back inside the house, my hands trembling, my chest tight like someone tied a rope around me and it kept pulling me. I wanted to shout, to call Emily, to call Daniel, to demand answers right there in the street. But something inside me told me not to. Something told me to wait, to listen, to see how deep this betrayal really went. I sat in the dark living room, the soft glow of the candles mockingly flickering against the walls, as if laughing at my stupidity. The bottle of wine I prepared stood at open. I poured myself the glass, but the taste was bitter in my mouth. Every second felt like an hour until I finally heard this faint sound of the front door. But Emily walked in as if nothing had happened. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly messing, her perfume lingering stronger than before. She looked at me, surprised for a moment, then quickly forced a smile. "Sorry, Jack," she said softly, avoiding my eyes. "Needed some air." On our wedding night, I wanted to scream with Daniel, but the words got stuck in my throat. Instead, I just nodded slowly, watching her every move. She walked past me, picked up the glass of wine I had prepared, and sipped it like nothing was wrong. She didn't even ask why in the pale why. My hand shook when I tried to put the bottle back down. We went to bed that night, but I didn't sleep. Emily turned her back to me, her breathing slow and steady, as if she had no worries at all. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the image of her leaning on Daniel's shoulder. Each time I closed my eyes, it was there, fresh, cutting me open all over again. The next morning, I woke up early, maybe I never just slept. I made coffee, sat at the table and stared at my phone. I wanted to message Daniel to ask him why, but I knew he would lie. People like him don't tell the truth, especially when they think they can get away with it. When Emily finally came down, she kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened. "Good morning, husband," she said, her voice sweet, too sweet. I forced a smile. "Good morning." She spent the day acting normal, cooking, cleaning, even humming, while she moved around the house. But I couldn't get Daniel's face out of my head. I couldn't shake it away. Her eyes seemed brighter when she came back last night. Something inside me knew this wasn't just one-time mistake. This was deeper. That evening, when she said she was going out to meet her friend Claire, I pretended not to care. I nodded, I kissed her forehead, and watched her leave. But the moment she was gone, I grabbed my jacket and followed. She didn't go to Claire's house. She didn't even walk toward her house. Instead, she turned down a different street, one that led to a small cafe at the edge of town. And there it was, Daniel, sitting at a corner table, waiting for her. I stood hidden across the street, my heart pounding in my ears.
For the next hour, I watched them laugh, lean close, whisper things I couldn't hear. The cafe lights glowed warmly on their faces, making them look like some kind of happy couple. My wife, my best friend. When they finally laughed, I followed again. This time, they didn't go back to the cafe or to Claire's house. They went straight to a motel on the outskirts of town. I felt like my heart stopped beating. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My entire body froze in place, as if the world had ended right there on that sidewalk. I don't remember how long I stood there, staring at the glowing neon sign of that chic motel. My mind kept repeating the same words. "She's gone. They both betrayed you. She's not yours anymore."
When I finally walked back home, my legs were weak. The house felt colder than before, emptier. I sat at the dining table, my head in my hands, and tried to understand what I had done to deserve this. What had I missed? What did I ignore? The following days blurred together. Emily kept lying, saying she was visiting friends, going shopping, attending errands. But I knew where she was really going and who she was really meeting. Each time she came back, she smelled faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. Each time she smiled at me, it felt like a knife twisting deeper in my chest. One evening I decided to confront her. I told her I had seen her with Daniel. Her eyes widened for a moment, then narrowed. She didn't even deny it. Instead, she looked at me coldly and said, "Maybe you should have been the man I needed." Her words cut deeper than any betrayal. She turned away, leaving me in silence, and I realized the woman I had married wasn't the woman I thought she was. That night she said those words to me. Something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I had been before. I was calm, almost frighteningly calm. I stopped asking questions, stopped begging for the truth, and stopped trying to fix something that was already broken. I realized then that Emily and Daniel didn't just betray me, they underestimated me. And that, I decided, would be their biggest mistake. Over the next few days, I played along. I smiled when she smiled, pretended to believe her lies, and acted like nothing had changed. But every time she turned her back, I was watching. I began noting her routine, when she left the house, how long she stayed out, who she texted, even the way her mood changed before and after seeing him. I became silent, invisible, a ghost in my own home. Daniel, on the other hand, stopped calling me altogether. No texts, no jokes, no visits. I guess he thought I was too broken to notice what he was doing. I let him think that. I wanted him comfortable, careless. One evening I walked into our study and noticed something I hadn't before. Emily's laptop. She always kept it locked, always closed when I was around. But that day she had forgotten to shut it completely. The screen glowed faintly and a small window blanked in the corner. Messages. I shouldn't have opened them, but at that point, what was left to protect? I clicked. Her inbox was full of messages from Daniel. My name popped up again and again in their conversations, not with love or guilt, but with jokes. They'd laugh at me, called me boring, predictable, too trusting. One line burned itself into my brain. Don't worry, he'll never find out. He's too busy playing the perfect house band. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. My chest was tied, but no tears came. I had none left. That's when I started recording. Screenshots, photos, messages, every little piece of proof I could gather. Not to ruin them yet, but to prepare. The next day, Emily said she was going to visit her parents. I smiled, kissed her cheek, and told her to take her time. The moment she drove away, I got into my car and followed. She didn't go to her parents' house. She went to Daniel's apartment. I parked a few blocks away and waited, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Hours passed. The sun went down. The street lights flickered on. Around midnight, I saw them through the window, Daniel and Emily laughing together like everything in the world was perfect. That image burned into my mind, but I didn't move. Not yet. I wanted to understand why two people could destroy another person's life and sleep peacefully at night. I drove back home quietly, the roads empty, the world silent. The only sound was the voice in my head whispering, "They think you're Reed, Jack. Show them you're nutty." The next few days I made sure to act normal. I made breakfast, went to work, came home, smiled when she did, that inside I was building something, a plan. I started with small things. I changed the passwords to our joint banking accounts. I redirected utilities under my name only. I stopped transferring money into her separate savings, something I had been doing since before the wedding.
Emily didn't notice at first. She was too distracted, living her double life. But I noticed everything. Then came the day I decided to test her. I left my phone unlocked on the table, deliberately open on my banking app, showing a large deposit. Within minutes, she texted someone. I saw the reflection of her screen in the mirror. The name was Daniel. The message was short. He got paid today. That was all the confirmation I needed. That night I sat outside under the stars, thinking about how love can turn into something poisonous without warning. I thought about how much of myself I had given to her, the trust, the faith, the years of believing she was the one. And now all that remained was a hollow ache. But I wasn't going to let that ache control me anymore. The next morning I made breakfast again, pretending to be cheerful. I have a surprise for you, I told her. Her eyes lit up, greedy, curious. What kind of surprise, she asked. You'll see tonight, I said. She smiled, unaware that tonight was the beginning of the end, not just for our marriage, but for everything she thought she could hide. All day I prepared. I didn't want chaos or drama. I wanted truth. I called Daniel and told him Emily had been acting strange, that I needed his advice. He hesitated but agreed to meet me that evening. What he didn't know was that I had already set up hidden cameras in the house. When the clock hit 8, the doorbell rang. Daniel stood there pretending to look worried. Hey man, you okay? I nodded. Come in. Emily was in the kitchen when he arrived. The moment she saw him, her face changed, a mix of fear and surprise. Daniel, she said quietly, what are... I called him. We need to talk. All three of us. They looked at each other, panic flashing between them. For the first time, they were speechless. And I was calm. Too calm. We sat at the dining table. The same one where we shared her first dinner as husband and wife. The same one where I had once imagined we'd raise children, tell stories, grow old together. Now it was just a stage for betrayal. Emily, I began softly. I know everything. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Daniel looked away. I placed my phone on the table and pressed play. Their messages, their calls, their laughter, all of it echoed for the groom. The air grew heavy, and for the first time I saw guilt on her face. But guilt wasn't enough.
And as they sat there in silence, the cameras kept rolling. This wasn't revenge. This was the truth. Finally caught in the open. And that night was just the start of my reckoning. The silence in that room was heavier than any storm I'd ever known. Emily's eyes were fixed on the floor. Daniel's hands trembled slightly. And the only sound was the quiet hum of the camera recording everything. For a moment, none of us spoke. I could feel my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Why? I finally whispered. That's all I want to understand. Why? Emily looked up slowly. Her eyes were red, not from guilt, but from fear. She opened her mouth to speak, but her words fell apart before they reached me. Daniel tried to interrupt, but I stopped him with just one look. I trusted both of you, I said, calm, too calm. Do you even realize what you've done? You didn't just destroy a marriage. You killed something that took years to build. No one answered. Maybe they knew there was nothing left to say. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the night was silent, the kind of silence that makes you hear your own thoughts too loudly. I thought about the man I used to be before all this, naive, hopeful, in love. That version of me died the night she left me alone at our wedding. What stood there now was someone else. I'm not going to scream, I said quietly. I'm not going to fight, but you're both going to remember this night for the rest of your lives. Daniel shifted uneasily in his chair. Jack, look, it wasn't supposed to... Stop, I interrupted. You've already done enough. I turned back to Emily.
I told you I had a surprise for you tonight, didn't I? Her eyes flickered with confusion. Well, I continued, the surprise is that I'm not the fool you thought I was. I walked over to the table and pulled out a small folder. Inside were printed screenshots, the messages, the photos, the proof. I slid them across the table toward them. This is everything. And before you stop begging or explaining, know this. I've already sent copies to a lawyer and another set to your company's HR department, Daniel. You see, I made sure your little secret doesn't just end here in this room. Emily's face went pale. Jack, you can't. I can, I said softly, because you two made choices. I'm just giving those choices the light they deserve. Daniel stood up abruptly, his voice shaken. You're crazy, man. You can't ruin people's lives over a mistake. I stared at him. A mistake? I repeated. Call months of lying, planning, and betrayal a mistake? No, Daniel, a mistake is spilling coffee. What you did was a decision. He had no answer. He just stood there, jaw tight, eyes dotting between me and the door. Emily tried to reach out for me, tears finally streaming down her face. Jack, please. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was confused. I cut her off again. You weren't confused. You were comfortable, and comfort made you careless. For a long moment, no one moved. Then I took a deep breath and stepped closer to her. You know what hurts the most, Emily? It's not that you stopped loving me. It's that you let me keep loving you while you knew it was over. Her shoulders shook, but I wasn't moved any more. The part of me that wanted her to stay had finally gone quiet. I've already packed you things. I said they're in the car. You'll leave tonight. She looked stunned. And where will I go? I don't care. Wherever the truth takes you. Daniel looked at me like he wanted to say something more, but he didn't. Maybe he finally realized there was no winning this. Without another word, he walked to the door. Emily followed him slowly, turning one last time to look at me. But I didn't look back. When the door closed, I stood there for a long time, listening to the quiet hum of the empty house. It felt strange, peaceful almost. The storm had passed, but it had taken everything with it. I walked over to the camera, turned it off, and sat down. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. Not happy, not sad, just free. Later that night, I went out for a drive. The city was asleep, the streets glistening under the streetlights after a soft rain. I pulled over near an old park where Emily and I had our first date. I sat watching the reflection of the lights dance on the wet pavement, and I realized something important. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone back. Sometimes it's just about walking away, but making sure they know you saw everything. I smiled a little, almost to myself. Goodbye, Emily, I whispered into the night. The next morning, I packed a small bag and left the house behind. I didn't know where I was going yet. Maybe somewhere quiet, maybe somewhere no one knew my name. All I knew was that I was done living in the shadow of what had been. And as I drove away, the sun began to rise. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the weight of betrayal. I felt the hope, fragile, Berkeley-o. I stopped at a diner on the edge of town, ordered black coffee, and watched the world wig up around me. The waitress smiled politely, and for a second, I realized how strange it felt to smile back genuinely. Maybe life wasn't over. Maybe it was just starting again. I took a deep breath and looked at my reflection in the window, tired eyes, messy hair, but still standing, still breathing. Brother Jack, I said quietly to myself, you made it through. And with that, I picked up my coffee, stirred up, and walked out into the morning night, ready to start over. one step at a time. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is peace.